Hi, so this video is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be on camera because I wanted to really word my words correctly. So I wrote a little bit of a script for this. And in the background, there's going to be this speed paint. I'm going to do a redraw of The Kiss by Klimt because I think it's very relevant to this conversation. Because as a kid, I always interpreted this painting as two women kissing. Enjoy this video. I hope you like the format. Let me know your opinions because I really want to have some sort of discussion about this. So I wanted to make this video because recently an article came out by Malavika Kannan called Lowkey, I Chose to Be a Lesbian. And recently there's been some discussion about it because Doechii commented on it and she came out as a lesbian last month. And I have some thoughts about this article, as well as about Doechii coming out after dating men. And another catalyst for this video was Jojo Siwa dating a man after using the label lesbian for quite a while. I think that female sexuality in general is controversial, and these two celebrities dating someone who would have previously not aligned with the label that they identified as starting a lot of discussion says something about how we view female sexuality. So I want to talk about that, as well as about the article. I also want to say that I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who identified as a lesbian for the better half of a decade and is now dating a man. First, to frame this, in the media, bisexual women have been seen as scandalous, such as in I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It by Katy Perry, or she is open-minded, maybe even a tool for a man to get with two women at once, like in Boys, Boys, Girls from Panic at the Disco. Or she is messy and fun, like in Pretty Little Liars. Although I feel like everyone was messy in that show. But if she is with a man, she's either just a straight girl looking for attention, or sexy for her boyfriend by using other women as an accessory for her boyfriend's sexuality. I think there's this prevailing misogynistic belief that women will say they're bisexual to seem special or oppressed when women are already oppressed in the patriarchy, and this biphobia is also rooted in the patriarchy and just misogyny. When I used the label lesbian, I also held a lot of subconscious biphobic and sexist ideas. I feel like I silently judged bisexual women who had never dated a woman, and I unconsciously celebrated bisexual men a lot more, even if he had never dated a man before. And let's be honest, that's not just biphobia. The community can accept a bisexual man much more easily than they can accept a bisexual woman. I thought it was cringe to use queer aesthetics without having any queer experiences as a woman, and I feel like that's just a different flavor of N-log by pitting women against each other. I am very happy I didn't hang on to the label lesbian, the label that I thought applied to me when I was 13. I had never fallen for a man, which isn't weird because I was only 13. My first crush just happened to be on a girl. In the article, she makes this point about splitting hairs between bisexual and lesbian, which I don't agree with. Acknowledging the difference between bisexual and lesbian is not bad. I think what she's trying to say is that emphasizing those differences is not something we should be doing at a time like this when the whole community is being attacked, which I do agree with. Standing together is how we got our rights, and that's how we keep them. There are plenty of lesbians who say they would never date a bisexual woman, which is fine on its own, but it does paint a picture of how lesbians as a group see bisexual women. In the article, Malavika called her queerness a slow and spiritual awakening. In a way, I understand. But again, she worded this poorly. There needs to be space for all queer experiences, not just the perfect lesbian story. But in saying this, she is pushing away women who don't fit her narrative. The word choosing that she used was obviously not the right word, but I do understand what she means. I may have pushed men away when I was clinging to a label that I had quote-unquote chosen for myself at 13. Labels can help people, but how is knowing early on so romanticized? We celebrate when an elderly person realizes they are gay later in life, and we should. But why are we disappointed when a 22-year-old like Jojo Siwa realizes they don't identify with a label they identified with as a teenager? Stories about I always knew I was different, I didn't fit in with the boys, or whatever, are put up as these pillars of queerness, icons and proof that gay is inherent, which it is, which Malavika seems to imply that it isn't inherent, which is one of the main issues that I see people having with it online. But why do we need to pretend that one or the other experience is more valid? This is the part of the article where she starts pissing me off a little bit, more than just that she's wording things poorly, but I do get where she's coming from. The part where she starts talking about holding out. I did not give in to the patriarchy, and I was certainly not holding out. I was living a happy queer lifestyle, as she would call it, until I fell in love with a man. I lost nothing. At the time, it did feel like I was losing something. A community in which I knew there was biphobia, in which I had even expressed that judgment, as if I was losing real queerness, as if she is now clinging onto real queerness. And now looking back on it, I did not lose anything. I still have a queer community and I have the bi community. I only gained a partner that I love who happens to be a man. That has nothing to do with the patriarchy. I don't love him because he is a man. And I certainly won't do anything more than I did before to please the patriarchy. Her language irks me so much. I did not become lesbian or become bisexual. In my eyes, I was always bisexual. I had just never fallen for a guy before. Of course, she can talk about her sexuality however she wants, but I think this language is damaging. Becoming implies you can become straight, which people did tell me when I first told them I had a boyfriend, and has been used since forever to encourage conversion therapy. I do understand that using this label may make it easier to reject a man because it doesn't bruise their ego. That is, of course, ignoring the I'll make you straight type of man, who I thankfully never encouraged while I was identifying as a lesbian. But for the most part, a woman who is not attracted to men at all is not a threat to their ego. If she did like men, she would probably like me, right? Sure. Now, when I'm approached, I don't want to immediately say that I have a boyfriend, because I don't want the source of a man's respect to come from the fact that I am connected to a man. But unfortunately, it often does. Even when I make rejection clear, a man will often only back off once I declare I already belong to another man, so he should respect his woman, not the woman herself. A lesbian, however, can't be of another man. And I think this is both rooted in the same sexist ideas. The same sexist ideas that I think a lot of this article comes from. I fully understand if dealing with men became easier for her once she started using that label, or even getting rid of men in her life entirely, which is her prerogative, but decentering men does not necessarily mean pushing them out of your life. You can have a male partner and work on decentering men. That does not mean you are working for the patriarchy. But she is not decentering men. She is almost fetishizing not interacting with men in a romantic or sexual way. In the article, she is constantly talking about how lesbianism is so great because of how it affects the men around her. And as a feminist, I think you should think about men, because feminism is about equality for everyone, because the patriarchy negatively affects everyone, including men. That this can exist next to decentering men and acknowledging that we center men in our lives because of the patriarchy, the same system that also harms men. Her quote about, "Are you aligned with patriarchy or are you its enemy?" is way too black and white, in my opinion. We all adhere to the patriarchy in some way because we are raised in it. There's no way you can avoid it, even if you choose not to interact with men at all, because sexist ideas are ingrained in our brains. This is exactly the type of pitting women against each other that I think she was arguing against in her splitting hairs for bi or lesbian part. She is implying here that some women are aligned with the patriarchy and some people are the enemy. And I feel like this only pushes certain women away, which doesn't help the cause at all. a little side note here, she also compares quitting men to quitting Amazon in her article, which I feel like you really shouldn't do. You shouldn't compare quitting Amazon to the struggles of living as a queer woman. You do not need one day delivery on your trendy new crop top as a means of survival, but we do need to live as ourselves for survival. Anyway, I think that as a young feminist, a lot of girls discover all these horrible things that have been happening to them, have their roots in patriarchy, and become very angry. I became very angry, and I feel like that can happen at any age. Uh, but seeing all these things that I, my friends, my mother, and all the other women around me were going through that were happening because they were women made me want to blame someone. It made me want to blame men, which I feel like she's doing in this article. I still think that most men do way too little against the patriarchy and certainly too little in holding themselves and their friends accountable when they are saying or doing sexist things. But discovering feminism as a young girl and becoming so angry with men is valid up to a point. Then discovering you are attracted to women and latching onto that is also valid up to a point. I think Malavika in this article has reached that point. A point where it feels like she is doing the opposite of what she is trying to do, which is open doors. Which brings me to her part about giving some lesbian commotion for her straight friends. I've had conversation with my straight friends about how they were disappointed that they have to deal with men in relationships, about how they almost wish that they were lesbians. In her article, she implies that they can choose to be lesbians. And I do think that her celebration of her straight friends is justified. I think that she's trying to say is not that we need to give some lesbian commotion because she thinks that they are lesbians or should choose to be. She is saying that there needs to be solidarity among gay and straight women, which I fully agree with, but again, I feel like this article is pushing away bisexual women. So she's just creating more of a divide. I think that's also where the whole sorry I'm dating a man meme comes from, that both straight and bisexual women say sometimes. And I think this is rooted in the same feelings as this article and the biphobia that we see in the sapphic community. Comphead is real and it's harmful. I do think that's true. But ignoring feelings for a man because of hatred for the patriarchy is also harmful. Just like saying you can choose to be a lesbian to supposedly fight it is also harmful. To round this all out, my boyfriend did not create the patriarchy, and dating him also did not. However, he is still a part of it, as am I, and as are you. Sexist ideas are absolutely entrenched in our thoughts and actions, and it is our responsibility to recognize them and change our behavior. But dating a man as a bisexual woman is not betraying your community. It doesn't say anything about your queer identity, and it is not upholding the patriarchy or heteronormativity. It means that queer people are valid, conversion therapy has never worked, and you can discover at any age that you are attracted to someone who happens to be a gender you were previously never attracted to. And no, you cannot choose to be a lesbian. Anyway, thank you for listening to my rant about this article and about Doechii and about Jojo Siwa. I feel like I even forgot to mention Doechii, but I have so many more thoughts about this, about biphobia, about the sexism among women, and I could talk about this forever, but this is just a small part of my thoughts about it. I would like to, if anyone comments on this video, who knows, then I'd like to know your opinion about modern political lesbians like Malavika. I think it's interesting. I feel like it does harm the community more than it benefits it. And using a label like that, you know, I'm on the fence because, like I said, I do understand it. And something else that I might talk about in the future actually is political non-binary people. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, but I've met a few political non-binary people, and I feel like it's in line with political lesbianism, but it's still different, you know, trying to break down the gender binary. I don't have many judgments about it now because I haven't given it enough thought, but, you know, it's in my head. Anyway, I hope you like the drawing. And I'll see you next week.